Tuesday morning. My name is Fred Ndimuli, by the way. We're watching Power Breakfast on Citizen TV. I'm here with Dr. Eric Kibet, a lawyer, Brian Mutie, governance analyst, and Dunstan Riziki, also a lawyer. We want to look at one more headline before we wrap up. And this is on page 6 of the Daily Nation. MP's secession bill leaves out 7 counties in new state. An opposition MP has sought the cessation of all but 7 of the 47 counties to form the People's Republic of Kenya. Apart from central Kenya counties of Nyeri, Murang'a, Kiambu, Kirinyaga, Nyandarua, Embu, and Tharaka Nithi, Homabay Town MP Peter Kaluma wants all the other 40 to break away from the Republic of Kenya, citing discrimination against them. So the 40 become People's Republic of Kenya, and the other one become Republic of Kenya. Now, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission has given Mr. Kaluma the green light to present the bill either through Parliament or collecting 1 million signatures. Should he choose a parliamentary way, he'll have to get a 2/3 majority in the House, which is a tall order. But, well, this talk, it was just mere talk. Now we are seeing a bill. And it should be worrying that this discussion has gotten here.
I think it's unfortunate, first of all, as you have rightly put it, that we are finding ourselves where we are as a country, where we are talking about secession and, you know, these rhetorics and all that. But I want to say, if going by what Kaluma is actually proposing, this is not secession, but this is what I would want to call isolation.
We're discussing the secession bill.
Yes.
Yes.
So this is, to me, is isolation, because if he has mapped out all the counties in this country and only left the Mount Kenya region, I think Mount Kenya and the Rift Valley, to me, if the politics of the day are anything to go by, should have been together. If he feels that these two are the ones who are holding the central government or the national government for that and isolating others from achieving or, you know, enjoying the rights that the others are enjoying. So to me, I think just isolating central Kenya or Mount Kenya region for that matter, I think it's unfortunate, and that's why I'm calling it an isolation sort of issue. But again, we have to ask ourselves, why are we finding ourselves where we are as a country right now? Why? Where did the rain started beating us? If the situation, you know, has regenerated to where it is, we have, I think, to do a sort of cause analysis sort of situation or analysis to understand what are the reasons why Kaluma and others, because he represents a bigger mass of the population, that there are some people who are feeling aggrieved or isolated. They are not enjoying the benefits of the national cake as they are supposed to enjoy. They are feeling as second citizens or second-class citizens for that matter, and they are not feeling as part and parcel, as part of the ownership of this country. And therefore, these are some of the issues that we have to ask ourselves, that we pride ourselves as having one of the most progressive constitution, where we have devolution also, you know, happening well and executing its purpose. But we are still having some issues to do with our national cohesion and other inadequacies as a nation in terms of marginalization and so on and so on. And therefore, it is important to ask ourselves whether the Constitution really answers the very essential questions or fundamental issues.
And Bwana Kibet, those are the questions we're asking now. Yes, the Constitution describes Kenya as one state. Can you go ahead and amend that to make secession constitutional?
You see, this is beyond, it's not just a matter of the Constitution, because secession is not an amendment to the Constitution. I think what we need to understand here is this is a way of communicating grievances, and we have to understand it in that context, that a section of the population feels discriminated or feel not included, and therefore the way to look at this is not just as a proposed constitutional amendment, because it is not, but to look at it in terms of people are presenting political grievances. And this is not completely unique.
So the referendum, if at all this would result into a referendum, it would not be a referendum to amend the Constitution, but rather a referendum to secede, which is away from the Constitution.
Yes. And this is a matter of international law, the exercise of the right to self-determination. So, and the way it has been addressed and settled is that you almost do not have the right to secede, but you have the right to make such a claim. And I can tell you this is not entirely new in Kenya. If you recall, a few years ago, there was deep agitation by a group called Mombasa Republican Council, and their slogan, Pwani si Kenya. And the matter went to court when the Minister for Internal Security then banned Mombasa Republican Council. And the court, the High Court in that decision gave certain pieces of advice that could be useful now. That when you have political grievances, the way to do is to address them politically. And as my colleague has mentioned, we have a number of mechanisms within the Constitution, including devolution and other mechanisms, that we can be able to address political grievances that people have, rather than going the secession route. But perhaps this is a way to jolt us to reality that we need to talk, and we need to create an inclusive society where people can feel we are one.
And people, yes, may just talk and speak, but it has happened in other countries. You know, in Spain, it's happening right now. That one area is really keen on being alone. In Cameroon, we have something with the Anglophone speaking areas of the country looking to move away. In Somalia, just neighboring here, and you mentioned it during the break, Bwana Riziki, this talk could grow into something else.
Actually, this talk, you know, speaking after your teacher is very difficult, because actually he's the one who taught me this subject.
It's very interesting. It only happens on Power Breakfast, like student and teacher on the panel.
One thing, right to self-determination, it is one of the, it's referred in legal parlance as hard law. Hard law in the sense that it's emotional, it's visceral, and whichever way you look at it, one party or the other will feel aggrieved by that. And therefore, one of the areas, the best way, secondly, regional instruments. You know, Kenya is a dualist state. A dualist state in the sense that international laws or international instruments, for that matter, that Kenya is party to, Kenya has signed to, then forms part of our laws as a country. Therefore, Kenya has signed to various instruments. One of them is Vienna Principles. Another one is the United Nations Assembly Declaration of 1970. One of these instruments give the right to self-determination to be part of our laws. Therefore, if you look at it from the legal balance, it gives an avenue. Whatever Kaluma has done is to bring out the issues that probably this country needs to address. And how best do we need to address such issues? Through dialogue. You know, once you have dialogue and implementation of various reports and task force recommendations, therefore these issues of Mosoti GRC report, these issues of inclusion, if, for example, the government implements actually the TGRC report, for that matter, all the historical injustices and grievances. Therefore, the issues of exclusion, the issues of historical injustices will feel, the other part of the country will feel that they have tackled some of the issues. Then this debate on secession will come to a close. But legally, if you look at our constitutional provisions, most of the approaches they have taken with the People's Assembly, for that matter, that is one of the strategies that NASA has employed. The recommendation from the People's Assembly, if you look at the reading of Article 1, and Article 1.2 specifically, in terms of the power can be exercised directly or indirectly. Yes. The indirect exercise of power that is premeditated by the NASA coalition is not through the legal means. Because if the People's Assembly makes a recommendation, for that matter, for example, makes a recommendation that we don't want a particular person within the government, then how best will you implement this provision or this recommendation from the People's Assembly without the constitutional means? If you look at the secession debate, rather than bringing out the issues raised by Kaluma, the issue of seclusion, the issues of government appointments, the issues of distribution of natural resources, the implementation of the same is legally impossible unless you look at it from the international realm, because we belong in a committee of states. Then maybe I'll use the example of Jubaland. Of Somalia, where you have Somaliland, which is a British protectorate, Jubaland, and Somalia, which is an Italian colony. If you look at them from that perspective, for example, if you say within the counties, if the counties are able to function properly within the mandates as envisaged in the Constitution, then these issues of seclusion or issues of marginalization will not be there. Because at the county level, if resources are used well, then people will not feel left out in governance structures. But at the national level, I think we need to really should form a kind of discourse to improve more so on government appointments and
we only have like about 3 minutes, so yes, one more comment each on this.
All right. Okay. I think I just want to pick from where my colleague Riziki has actually left in terms of why we are where we are right now. Yet devolution seems to serve us. As a matter of fact, when you go to most of the counties, Fred, and I have happened to travel in most of these counties, and where we were in the yesteryears is not where we are right now as a country, and there is much more improvement in terms of infrastructure. And you could see, if you go to counties such as Wajir, Marsabit, you get a completely total overhaul of what was there before, and that's thanks to devolution. And therefore, it is just a matter of time for us to think on how we can strengthen this institution and see how we can make it more robust and make it better in terms of serving the interests of the people in those particular areas. When we are talking about the constitution, you know, being able to allocate 15% of the national revenue, I think we have to look into a way of actually increasing this kit in a very more, you know, sober way, without actually touching the political nerves of each party or each side, and ensure that while we are talking about the 85%, which is actually domiciled at the national level, we find a way of how we are going to meet or to, you know, address the interests of the various stakeholders who are playing at the national level, because that's where the rubber meets the road, where, you know, a certain part of the wing of the political wing feels that the national government has really messed up with the 85%, which is supposed to adequately address or be distributed up across the country, but that they feel that is not being done. And therefore, we have to understand that we can come up with a framework through a task force that can find a way, our recommendation. But
Brian, sure that's hoping that we get to resolve this. But we're now dealing with a bill that, according to this story, has already been presented to the IBC. IBC has given a go-ahead. Even if, and the story says, rightly put, said that it is a tall order for it to be passed, either through Parliament or through raising the 1 million. But any such process, if at all it is started, even just having this discussion in Parliament, whether it passes or not, would have an implication, even politically. Don't you think, Bwana Kibet, even as we wrap up now? Because, yes, even Parliament just debating such a bill, that in itself has an implication.
Yeah, it certainly is going to be a bleeding process, because this is not friendly. When you secede, it's not a friendly act. You're saying, let's part ways. It's like divorce. And I think the message really from it is that there are political grievances that need to be addressed. But I would say this, that I think the way to address them is the political elite will have to clothe themselves in some humility and agree to begin to listen to one another and listen to the sentiments of the people and begin to see how best to take this forward, so that at the end of the day, we will still be together because we are better off together. We have a good country with great potential. If it's going to be great, it's up to us, and how I wish that those who are in the forefront in terms of running the political agenda of the country will have the time and the humility to begin talking about this, so that in the end, we have a great country that is one.
It could be a strategy just to push for some things to happen. But once such a discussion begins, it could take a life of its own. Riziki.
Exactly. You see, one thing about right to self-determination is an interesting field of law that probably you should delve into with a sound mind. I'll also look at it that if NASA wants to achieve, or Kaluma wants to achieve, a particular agenda,
which is not necessarily secession.
Which is not necessarily secession, then the first avenue that he needs to maybe take advantage is the African Court of Human Rights. Presents the grievances of those people in those areas to the African Court of Human Rights, saying that, one, maybe you have been secluded, resources are not being distributed equally in these areas. Then the court, the African Court of Human Rights, gives a particular order, for that matter, that, by the way, the government of Kenya, you need to do this and this. And Kenya, being a country that belongs to a community of states, then it will be able to comply with some of the orders. If the government of Kenya fails to comply with some of those orders, maybe, for example, failure to include some of the communities in the government, then that could provide a good fodder for the international community to also empathize with some of these the 47 counties. That is the first step. When you do that, you do progressively. You don't need to achieve it at one go. Do it progressively. Then in the Committee of States, once that is achieved, then now come with the bill. But starting with the bill from the onset, then it defeats the logic, in the sense that the legal mechanism or the constitutional mechanism set in terms of this bill, it will not see the light of day, whether it's through maybe Parliament, because first of all, NASA does not have the majority in either of the houses. Two, if you look at the issues of collection of signatures, I only remember the issues, the Okoa Kenya agenda. It never saw the light of day, because collection of the signatures is not an easy task. More so if you're collecting signatures from registered voters. Yes. It's not so easy, because...
It is not easy. It is definitely a tall order, but the story on page 6 reads that MP's secession bill leaves out 7 counties in new state. Very interesting. We're in for very interesting times. Thank you so much, Dunstan Riziki, lawyer, Brian Mutia, governance analyst, and Dr. Eric Kibet, also a lawyer. That wraps it up for a news review this morning with me, Fred Ndimuli. Time now to pave way for other interviews. Remember, Man Cave is coming up as well in a few minutes, so do not go anywhere. Power Breakfast is still the hashtag to use up until 9 a.m. Good morning.